Hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another one of my Finding Freedom forums, brought to you, of course, as I like to say, my sponsors, Pell Hughes, for all your printing needs. Also, check out the Great Southern Gun and Knife Show. And also, please check out Golden Guns in Slidell. With me today in this podcast interview is Sean George with the Beard Vet. Sean, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
You betcha, bud. Thanks for having me.
You know, I got the chance to meet you at CPAC after a buddy of mine that keeps promoting you said you got to meet the bearded vet. You got to. He calls you the bearded vet, and and so then I was lucky enough to meet you at CPAC. But on my Finding Freedom Forum podcast that I do here, I'm doing Facebook Live right now. It's gonna be found on YouTube and Rumble and on my all podcast apps. I always like to talk about some things like finding freedom. I believe that freedom is being lost in America. And so I'm bringing on guests for 15 minutes at a time like yourself. Where do you think that freedom is being lost in America?
Oh, well, William, I mean, where do you start? I've just noticed like the news cycle is just constantly going crazy about that subject of essentially all of our freedoms being lost, like just being picked away one at a time. Mm-hmm. Whether if it's your children's education, the censorship on social media platforms, from the vaccines, being told to be locked up. I mean, it was never ending there for a while, and it's still ringing true. You see the two-tiered justice system happening right now. I mean, the things are endless that are hurting our freedoms. The freest country in the world, yet Democrats don't believe that, or some certain folks don't believe it. But they're constantly preaching about how we are not, a free place. We're anti-free, and we're supposed to be, but yet they're the ones pulling the rug out from under all of our freedoms.
It's funny you say that because you're touching on something, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great thought. All too often we hear people on the left are always saying that, we're not as free as other countries. I even read an article one time that tried to say that America is not as free as some other countries. And of course, the other side likes to argue that other countries have a better healthcare system. And of course, it's all socialized medicine over there. But they talk about how great and wonderful it is. Then they create policies here in America that actually take away freedoms and liberties, which makes the environment worse. And it's almost like, are they doing that by design, or is it something that they just are ambivalent and don't realize? The same way everybody thinks that communism is great and we just didn't do it right the first bunch of times.
Yes. That's 100% right. I agree 100% with what you're saying. And those are the things that I'm hearing. And those are the things that people are coming up to me and our subject of conversations are about. Here in Nebraska, that's where I live. I live outside of Omaha, Nebraska. I'm a part of an organization that I love to assist and help. It's called the Nebraska Freedom Coalition. And they're being sued right now for just saying the word groomer, and they're being sued. Yeah. Yes.
For saying the word groomer?
From a tweet. And now, so I'm assisting them any way that I can. And we've been friends with that organization for quite a while. I've done some events around here with them, as far as like everything from, we brought Scott Pressler here. We brought, several, had a big event with some country and rap celebrities. We had a nice hosting event with some other folks. Plus, we're bringing Carrie Lake here in a couple months. So
nice.
Possibly Steve Bannon too. Bannon just hasn't committed 100% yet, but Carrie Lake's coming September 2nd here.
Have you thought about bringing William Wallace up there?
Yeah, come on up, man. Heck yeah, we'd love to have you. We would. And we're going to a part of Nebraska that's very rural, a lot of farming community. And, I don't know if you saw, but I went to the Trump rally 2 Fridays ago in Iowa, which is just right across the river from me, and how he did Farmers for Trump, and talked about China and all those things the policies that he had put in place that garnered $28 billion back to farmers, checks,
Mhm.
literally checks handed back to farmers to assist them in all the money they've been losing, because China backed out of a prior deal. And so anyways, he got China to pay that. And so we're going to go out and talk to those farmers out there in that community. We're going to get them, because nobody ever goes out. They're flyover country, right? I mean, people consider us in Omaha a city of about 1 million people surrounding here, and people think we're flyover country as
Right.
well, but they're real flyover country, So we're going to go out there. We're going to have a big event. We're going to have some country musicians and some other folks out there. We're going to do an all-day event out there, Cary Lake. So anyways, getting back to those folks, I love being a part of their organization because they do fight for the freedoms just here locally. But that's where you got to start, right? You got to start to defending your freedoms, because the other side has a way head start in front of us. And unfortunately, we let it go for too long. I don't know how it happened. You can ask many people, but we got complicit, and we trusted our government would work for us. And unfortunately, now I believe we're at probably the most critical point in our country's history since its founding, as far as the Bill of Rights and our constitutional freedoms that were given to us.
With everything that you've discussed just now, where do you think our freedoms are most at risk, or where do you think that we're losing them the fastest? It's interesting that you brought up education at the beginning, and then you went to farming, which I agree with you. We're losing our freedoms in our country through farming because we're selling so much of our farming land to China and other foreign adversaries. Do you know in Louisiana we had a veto override where we could have stopped foreign adversaries from buying Louisiana farmland, and they didn't have the guts to override that veto. They didn't have the nerve to get it done. And that's a whole nother story. But where do you think we're losing it the most?
Oh, well, if you really, for a person who's on social media and runs our social media account, at least I run the Twitter account. So if you're
Yeah.
over on Twitter, I run that account. On Facebook, though, we're at Team Beard Vet, and plus we have Beard Vet Coffee over there as well. So, but anyways, we're losing that. I think a lot, just because I experience it. I think we're losing a lot with our First Amendments. The right to free speech, the right to freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and freedom to protest. Peacefully assemble. They've done a very, very good job of doing two of those things, right around the January 6th time frame, right? So
Right.
they've shunned everybody who was peacefully protesting there, got lumped into a group of possibly feds and anybody else who started an insurrection on that day. Not for sure who did it. I'm just saying, it sure looks that way from the
Right.
documents that I've been seeing coming out. And but they were canceling people on social media. They were working directly with the federal government in canceling those folks, whether if it was through what you were saying about the election or what you were saying about COVID. So it's a shame, those two. And
It's
then go
it's a
ahead.
great point. It's a great point you just now made about the election. People think of First Amendment right as just being having free speech to say what you want to say, but not many people connect that to elections. And freedom of speech is also your elections. And so when our elections are stolen, not saying they were or anything,
Right.
but
Right.
when our elections are stolen, they're taking away the First Amendment right of millions and millions and millions of people. Would that be something you're talking about?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's exactly what I was talking about. And the freedom of speech, um, it was on trial yesterday, maybe a little bit of kabuki theater, or today. Today it was on trial with Robert Kennedy Jr. who's obviously running for president, he was censored. He was shut down on YouTube just as much as a week ago. You know,
Wow. Yeah.
and anyways, those all those things, and then the freedom of religion. You saw the FBI memo when Christopher Wray was once again in front of the Judicial Committee. Um, he he said that he's handled the problem, but the problem was way before that. The problem was that a field office was going after Catholics.
Why is that?
William, they said they were radicals. They said they were radicals, and they were teaching, things that weren't conducive to the American government. Literally calling Catholics terrorists. Now, Christopher Wray did say he talked with that field office, and they got it. That they didn't do that, but they were. The fact is that field office was, and that should be scary, especially me. I'm a Catholic, and I find that disturbing that because they think because we go to mass and we may attend church more than others, that we're meeting there plotting and planning. And that's not the case. We're what we're religious. It's the freedom.
Yeah.
It's our First Amendment right to practice the freedom of religion.
Exactly right. And all too often these days, they're trying to make everything either QAnon or conspiracy, or like for instance, they want to say that now the Sound of Freedom movie is, they're trying to label that as a QAnon conspiracy, much like they've tried to do with the Catholic religion and other things. I said, look, I don't think that there's any group out there right now that is, under the radar or nefarious plans or anything like that. I think that there's a group of wealthy big dogs, like the one I hear in the background.
Right.
Wealthy big dogs that are basically gaming the system for their own benefit, and they're not worried about freedom in America. They're not worried about the country that we love with this Constitution that protects our God-given rights to freedom and liberty. They're more worried about their God-given right to make money and put freedom aside when it comes to being able to create policies through the bureaucracies or putting the First Amendment against us in ways that doesn't hurt their ability to earn more money. I know it's kind of a long way to say it, but
Yeah.
I know you followed me on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, big corporations are, they're planting the seeds that it's us that is the ones causing the problems. Meanwhile, it's them that they love the cheap labor, and they want to keep it that way. And they really,
and I'm not against big corporations the same way that I'm not against the LGBT community. I'm not against transgender people. I'm not against, liberal minded people. I'm not even against pro-choice people. I'm against policies that get pushed upon us that expect our freedoms and our liberties to be undermined against our will. That's when I fight back. And that's what I think is under attack in our country, is our freedoms through groups that want us to give up our freedoms to be able to heighten and elevate themselves, like the corporations. I'm not against corporations, but when they elevate themselves in a way that undermines our freedoms, that's when I get upset.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And that is why, I play a big part here in our Nebraska community with the precinct strategy. Our Nebraska GOP, MAGA, Make America Great, basically took over our GOP here last summer. And it was quite a stir. They called it Corngate. It's still an ongoing battle. Somebody broke into the Republican, into the Nebraska GOP building the night that we took power from what I would call rhino establishments. So it's still ongoing. I'd love for it to get more out in the news. The police have suspects, but have never released who it is. We know who it is, but we'll
so do you think it was another Republican that broke into the Republican headquarters?
Yeah, absolutely, it was. Yeah.
Really? And so your GOP up there is do you think your GOP in Nebraska is undermining freedoms and liberties? Or are they just kind of like they're an establishment organization that's supporting, establishment minded, you know, forward slash rhino type candidates? Is that that's going on up there?
It's been a long, listen, Nebraska is a very red state, but it has been establishment taken over for a long time. The Ricketts family, obviously billionaires, and they had taken over the party for quite a long time. So this is their experience in the pushback from their own party for the first time ever, which is great for us. But we're still trying to make headway, trying to find candidates that will take on the establishment candidates that are in the highest positions, which is, our House of Representatives and our Senate. We
Right.
had Senator Ben Sass, probably one of the biggest rhinos, and then we got rid of him, but unfortunately Ricketts took his place.
So did Ben Sass get voted out?
No, no, he resigned because he became the University of Florida president, and handed the position over to Ricketts, who will be up for election in another year.
So the only reason why Ben Sass left is because he got offered a job in another state, mind you.
Right.
I'm on the Nebraska Cornhusker. I'm a conservative Republican from Nebraska, all for Nebraska until Florida gives me a job.
Farming videos in the whole 9 yards, right? So he's out there in a pair of rubber boots, acting like he's a farmer, which is the furthest thing from the truth.
Right. Exactly.
But anyways, yeah, that's really what's happened here. And I don't mean to talk Nebraska politics because obviously, I'm very involved with the Trump campaign. I do a lot of stuff with the external affairs part of President Trump's campaign. I've been to Mar-a-Lago several times. I just got done seeing him down at TPUSA in West Palm Beach. Saturday, I watched him speak, and I'm very close with some of the other folks that are with Don Jr. and everybody else. So, I try to get around as much as possible, all doing that while making a great cup of coffee, a great cup of joe, and helping veterans out as well. So it gets to be kind of a busy lifestyle, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it when my hair is on fire and there's total chaos, but it's kind of controlled chaos, right?
So. Well, let's talk about that. That was my last question. We're waiting for the next guest to come on.
Sure.
What are you doing? And I know that we know you're a bearded vet. Is that what you're doing as your way to help protect freedom and liberty in America?
Well, we started this company. Me and the missus, we started this company because both of us were getting a little older. I'd already had a successful company that my oldest son runs. So it's a credit card processing company, which, now, I needed something to do with my time. So the best way I could do it is getting involved with veteran charities and doing stuff. I'm also I'm a former commander of our Disabled American Veterans chapter. My entire family is veterans. The damn building is named after one of my great uncles.
In Nebraska?
Yeah. Where the Disabled American Veterans have their building. It's named after one of my great uncles. So anyways, it's a long tradition. It came natural to me after serving. I am a disabled veteran myself. But yes, we started this company to raise awareness for one, and give back, and to be able to give back, and do some good, and to become a better citizen, right? I didn't live a perfect lifestyle for 40 years. I wish I did, but I'm trying to be more righteous, and that part of me has been the better part of 8 years. Has been the most fulfilling, besides my children growing up.
So do you think that protecting? I mean, I know your way of doing coffee to find ways to get back to the veterans. Do you find that protects freedom? And I mean, I'm not trying to do a lead in, because my opinion is that you're by helping veterans, you're protecting freedom, because you're protecting and helping the people that are protecting it right now. Is that kind of your thought? Or what type of veteran, what aspect do you help? Are you helping veterans that might need? Do you have veterans that just need specific things? How do you work that?
So I'm kind of all over the board when it comes to that. I try to help in every charitable um, charitable foundation that gives back more than what they receive. So, or they have there's ways of going through their taxes, and we go and look at that, and we actually see how much they're contributing back to the actual veteran. So I try to stay on those things. So I do a lot with TBI and PTSD veterans. I do a lot with homeless veterans. Like the Veteran Community Project, which is a big one I really love. John Daly, the golfer, he helps raise a lot of money for his foundation, which is a Heart of a Lion. And I do a lot with him as far as that organization goes, which gives back to charitable foundations in the communities that he hosts events in, which is wonderful. And it's all across the board. But yes, getting back to your question as far as freedom goes, I've never really looked at it that way, to be honest with you. I just want to be a more proactive citizen who doesn't want to see those freedoms go away, which
Right.
I think it's really close, William. I think we're so close. Again, it's the closest this country's ever been to losing those freedoms in 250 years. And that is the most concerning thing that's on my mind. And, for my children's future and my grandchildren's future. So I do worry about those things, and I try to do whatever I can, whether it be social media wise or on the streets, doing my thing. I try to do that all along with supplying a good, giving a little energy independence to the fans.
I like the energy independence through the caffeine. Is that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, and you are, and that's what I like. That's what I like about you, Sean. I recognize the fact that you're not in this to make $1 million. You're not in this, because you want to just have you want to have a coffee to brag about, which is you want to have, of course, but you're in this to really do good. It's like you put doing good for others above the profit, above the how shall we say, the not the attitude, but the having a I guess what I'm talking about.
I appreciate it. More of a patriotic flair for our country, a love of the country, and a country that I took the oath for. Those things do matter to me. And I think they should matter to everybody who watches this show, and I bet you they do. So,
well, Sean, I want to start having you on a more regular basis. You're amazing. I've always loved what you're doing, and the more I get to know you, the more I want to help you and support you. And you let me know when you need me to come up to Nebraska, and I'll this southern boy will learn how to shuck some corn. All right, because I know y'all grow a lot of corn up there, right?
Yeah, and and have you guys reach out to us. We'd love to sponsor your show too. So,
I will, absolutely.
Yeah. I think what you do is a great job and a good service, and we'd love nothing more to do that with you as well.
All right, Sean, I'll contact you the next day or two.
Sounds good, my man.
Thank you so much, brother. Have a great night. Thank you very much for protecting freedom.
You too.
Talk to you soon. Hey, Lorraine, how are you? How's it going there?
It's going really good. We're going to pull over here so I can be able to talk and give him the directions. We're headed to another little town, and I was using my phone for the directions, but so I'm going to let him use his phone for the directions, and then we can continue our interview.
Absolutely. Well, Lorraine, I tell you, you always have that great smile. You always have that great amount of energy. And you know what? I've brought you on my show before, and right. I'm doing this forum the way I'm doing this forum now is where I bring people on for some shorter segments to talk about where freedom is being lost in America.
Yes.
And I think we're losing it in places that we don't realize. And sometimes I'm bringing people on, they say, hey, we're losing it over there in some place I didn't even think about.
That's true. That's true in every place. And the thing about it is that I think what people are forgetting is that freedom is not free. That's the problem. And it is a cost involved. I know people say it, and when they say it like it's, like a little cliche. But no, it really is a cost involved for it. And we pay every day, every single day. That's where we're losing it. We're losing it in other areas. But you know what? I'm never lost on the fact that even though it seems like it's going down, it's not. Because for every one person I see like that's realizing that, no, I don't want to lose it, I believe there's 5 or 6 or 10 or more that are saying, I'm not going to lose it either. We
I
just
agree with
get
you.
the guts to stand up.
What's interesting, and you made a great point. When we talk about freedom isn't free, that's a cliche that sometimes gets how shall I say, not maybe misunderstood. That maybe it's not misunderstood. Maybe it's not taken to heart. But when you think about it, freedom isn't free usually pertains to the soldier having to fight for it and shed blood.
I know.
And sometimes we talk about the cost of freedom, whether it's in American lives or whether it's in money. How much do you have to pay for freedom? Sometimes you're paying fees to have certain freedoms. It could be paying a fee to have the freedom to put up a fence in your backyard or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But the way I look at freedom too, the cost of freedom is in time. We have to spend the time. I spend the time on a radio show. I know you spend time on a radio show. And so oftentimes I look at freedom as the cost of freedom is spending the time to be able to fight for it. Is that how you look at it too?
That's exactly how I look at it. And I also look at the fact that the willingness that each individual has to be willing to take to do it. When I wake up every day and I hear the horrid news of the things that's going on, and in that moment, if that horrible thing that is happening will deflate what I've already established as my freedom, then I need to go back to the drawing board. See, because this stuff that is happening was set up to happen and is going to happen. But it should not rock your boat. Not to the degree. Yeah, you should feel bad. Yeah, you should cry about it, pray about it, scream about it, but still continue to get up. The rudder and the motivation inside of you, that rudder and that engine is the passion that drives you, and that passion that drives you is the purpose. No individual can actually do anything worthwhile if they don't realize their sense of purpose. It is the purpose that actually builds and navigates that passion. You can't teach passion.
That's exactly right.
It's promoted from purpose.
Wait, Lorraine, without losing your thought there, what is your website where people can find you? Because I think that when we talk here in a few minutes about what you're doing to fight for freedom and we talk about your site, I think that's going to be really important for people to go to. What is it? What's your site?
Yeah, so it's my full name, Lorraine, Lorraine, Lemon, and it's .net. And they can go straight to that website. I have a YouTube channel, which is also my full name. And then I have one now that is called my Twitter handle, Best Speak Her, ATR, Best Speak Her. And then you also can catch me on the Hill Country Patriot. They podcast all of those shows.
You have all that? Do you have all that on your website?
Yes, I do.
I'm posted LorraineLemon.net's down here, scrolling at the bottom of our interview for people to see. So
that's right.
So, Lorraine, tell me, where do you think freedom is most under attack in America?
Our families. Our families. I really believe that it's most under attack. That I think that, well, everybody's heard the term that so goes the nation. So goes the family, so goes the nation. There's redefining what a man is and redefining what a woman is and redefining what a family is. It's really to destroy the structure. I call it the 6 easy steps how to communize a nation, and you socialize it from the inside out. So you begin to you awaken its very core. The very core of this country is the family. It really is. I know people talk about, well, we're Democrat, we're Republic, we're this. No, it really is the family. And when you begin to weaken that from the inside out, I say often China and Russia, they don't want to kill us. No, they don't want to. Hell no, they don't want to kill us. They want our stuff. So they want to keep us intact as much as possible. So they're weakening us from the inside out. And the first area to start is family. Weaken the man's position, what I call social castration of the male. There's no place for my young white males, especially. They're not black, they're not gay, they're not a female, and they're not trans. Where do they fit? So that, so that it's a weakening from the family and the family structure that God intended from the beginning. From there, then they can divide the caste and class systems and keep it going. So a man is not standing. I said, we can't make America great again until we make men men again. And so their whole social castration of the male species is what is huge. So again, I said, my biggest thing is freedom is within the family. The destruction, the most sought after attack is at the family.
And that is where our freedom is most under attack. And I got to tell you something. I've never quite thought about it like that, Lorraine, but that's why I brought you on, because you bring the light some things that I don't think about, and we're always on the same level. We always talk so well, as everybody around us always says whenever we're doing a show together. And that's one thing that I would have to say is I might have to switch my focus on some things and say that it is the family like you're talking about.
Yeah, I have a thing I do on Friday mornings. Most of it, and that's at 5:55 a.m. in the morning. Only God and His angels are up during that time. I don't know what I'm thinking, but I do get up, and one of the things that I see is I call it the 5 F's: faith, family, freedom, finances, and the fathers. Faith, family, freedom, finances, and the father.
Now,
and so,
go ahead.
And so that's a destruction from the inside out. Weakening our military system, weakening those things. Why? Because they want America. It's not so much they don't want to destroy America. They want us. They want us as little maze in like a little cage, and they still want to use us. They want our stuff. They want our stuff. That's and right. So I see this depopulation as opposed to repopulation. I'm doing this thing called who's really killing Black people. And I said when I talk to Black people, and I say often over and over again, let's look at some numbers. Since in slavery days, we had 12 million that we knew that were slaughtered and killed and hanged, blah blah blah. But check this out: since 1973, 19 million Black babies have been aborted. Damn. Well, you look at that. Let's look at those numbers. One was done within 200 or 300 years. The other was done in 50 years.
Wow. So I want you to repeat that statistic a little differently, because I've never heard that. I agree with you because I understand it, because more Black babies have been killed. So basically what you're saying is more Black babies have been killed from abortion than
any drug, crime, cancer, high blood pressure, any diseases combined.
Amazing. And we all know how Planned Parenthood got started. Absolutely. By Margaret Sanger, who said that Black people were the weeds of society. Is that correct?
Absolutely. She is rolling in her grave and saying, I say, Margaret, on my show the other day, how we're doing now. We have well exceeded your dream.
That's right.
Yes, we have.
Because had it not been for people like yourself bringing light to it, had it not been for pro-choice people, had it not been for people that are highlighting this, the Black population would be decimated right now. And that is yet, to your point, just simply another attack on families. Be it a different family, it's still an attack on families, and that's what your point was in the beginning.
Exactly. And so when I look at the destruction, what I call the infiltration or the attempted assassination is what I call it. The attempted assassination of the American spirit. And so, because when you wound the spirit of a man, you got the man down. You can take his arm off and he will work with the other arm. You take one of those, he'll hobble along. You take an eye out, he'll do the best he can. But when you wound the spirit of a man, then you actually take away all of his soul and everything to wanting to, you don't want to do nothing. You don't see that it's going to be any hope. You steal everything from his bones when you do that. And so what I have seen, what has happened, not just with Blacks, but whites and every other race, is that they're trying to socially castrate the spirit of a man. And in doing that, it takes this nation down. It really does. And so I'm a confident woman. I don't want to do everything a man does. No, I don't. I only want to do what God has placed me on this earth to do. I don't need to do what everything a man does and make myself a woman. No, not at all. But I do know that
now, Lorraine, there's going to be some people that disagree and say, that you're trying to lift up men, and you're trying to, say men should be made stronger. They should be more, in a way respected. And they're going to call you out and say oh, well, you're just basically kowtowing down to the male society.
Right.
And is it a religious thing, or is it just something that, like you're talking about now, and I'm bringing it full circle, where you're saying, look, let men be men and do what they're good at. Let women be women and be what they're good at. And together we create a family where our freedoms and liberties are protected in our society, and that they've understood that when you get rid of the family and you tear that apart, not only have you cut off their arm or their leg, like you referred to earlier, they've cut out their spirit when they attack the family.
Absolutely. And yes, if one must go there, then if I'd have to say if it was from a religious standpoint, then so be it. Because I do believe that in the beginning, when God created man, he didn't make a mistake that man was first. And then he turned around and he pulled Eve. He didn't take Eve from under his feet. He didn't take Eve from on top of his head. He didn't take Eve from off the rib of his back. He took Eve from the side. And to stand together as team, as one, absolutely. And when the both parties do their part, we soar, unbelievable. And so the enemy, what it is right now, the systems that are in play, what I call my PPs, politicians, pimps, and preachers, their goal is to keep the man down low, keep the woman rising high, so the chaos will continue, and we will not do what we were ultimately designed for.
Which is?
To be able to take this earth, and here we go. It says, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish. Now, that's not just what it said. Preachers have really messed us up on that. It also said dominion, to also subdue and have dominion. There's a 5-part a commission to that, a 5-part commission. Everybody, will just go ahead and have babies and replenish the earth. No, he said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. But then these other 2 things are never mentioned. And that is subdue and have dominion. That means have control of what's going on and what's coming out, and make it fruitful.
And making it fruitful, does that always mean children? Does that mean
no? To multiply is to mean children. To make it fruitful is being able the economy, whatever the existence of the economy is at that time, to make that a good thing, to make that prosper, and to watch what's coming in and stealing that and deteriorating that, to have subdue and have dominion. What's coming in and what's going out.
And when we do that, freedom flourishes for everybody, Lorraine.
Yes,
and so to your point, when you follow those simple rules and the family flourishes, so does freedom and liberty. And when that flourishes, everybody does well. And it doesn't matter whether a certain aspect of the population is more or bigger or more whatever than the other aspect or another part of the population. Everybody is equal. And what I meant by that is, it doesn't mean if one race has a bigger population than another race. When everybody flourishes and we're all working together, we're all equal.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to freedom and liberty.
And I know I'm sure there's something sounding like a la 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 land for me when I say this, but I believe there's a significant importance in the fact that we are not all the same amount of people. I believe it's very significant that we don't have 100% Black people, 100% Asian people. No, there's a significance in that. I believe that what each race brings to the table, the other race not only needs to appreciate, but realizes that part is the part that they're supposed to do. Hey, that part they do better than you. Hey, it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. I love how you say that. And it is. It's like let people be who they are. Let people live their lives, and it's okay. And it's like I said earlier with my other guest. I don't have to agree with somebody's freedom and liberty. I don't agree with how gay people live. I might not agree with how pro-choice people live. But I can agree that they have their freedom. And when we empower each other and we empower the family and we protect freedom for everybody, we all flourish. And out of respect, simply having respect for other people's freedoms, we all do better that way.
Yes,
and
we did.
So many people don't understand.
No, they don't. And let me jump back really quick, full circle back to the family. In the beginning, we think of a man and a woman. Out of that union, out of that union, all of the things that make the world go round. And I don't mean the song like Love Make the World Go Round.
Exactly.
No, everything that makes the economy, that makes relationships, that makes everything bloom, that makes a healthy nation is comes from the actual components inside of a marriage: love, trust, honor, obedience, success, mindness together. All of those things are important to make a country run.
That's
So
right.
then why would not God create a Tesla and a manufacturer in the garden? He could have did that. I mean, if he created the world, he could have created a Tesla company. Why couldn't we come up with computers coming out of the trees? No, he created a man and a woman, because out of that union comes everything else.
That's right. And you're touching on something that I did a show on a while back. I'm going to do more shows on this, which is work ethic. I think that work ethic, the family, and freedom all go together. You touched on this a little earlier.
Yes,
when
yes.
you've got families teaching work ethic and working together to be able to prosper, whether it's financially or in what they have. And when you attack work ethic, you also attack the family and you attack freedom. They're all connected. It's all this connection. And you know what? They're going after everything individually. In some ways, they're going after work ethic by destroying, the desire to do better. When you create a welfare state, you destroy work ethic. You're destroying families, and those same policies in the welfare system that's destroying work ethic is also destroying family. And so, to your point, so Lorraine, in your last few minutes with me here before my next guest comes on, what do you think is the number one thing that people can do to protect freedom in America?
Well, for one thing, I think that first of all, become knowledgeable. I mean, half of us don't have no concept, no idea about the Constitution or what that we are a republic more than we are a democracy. We have no idea about that. And then I think the third thing is that they would realize that this country is not built on, like a lot of other nations were built on, events or historical things, and they had their kings and kingdoms. We were built on a philosophy. And the philosophy is that I can, and if I think I can, I will. And when I fall down, damn it, I'm going to get up and do it again. Right. And that makes us, and it stands us apart. I think if they can get that, it would resolve a lot. It would stop the caste and the class system and the chaos. So when the crooked politicians come in, you would say, no. I didn't do this because so-and-so stopped me. So-and-so may have been a tool, but I'm still going to get up and do it again. We were built, we are a republic, and that the checks and balances of the legislature, the judicial, and the executive is to be able to keep that republic in order. So I would recommend, to keep our freedoms, people need to become more knowledgeable, more aware, and get rid of the spirit of apathy that is not coming to a neighborhood near you. And it is.
You know what, Lorraine? Your timing is perfect, because you brought up several times about that we're a republic and not a democracy. And my next guest here that's coming on here in just a minute, he's going to talk about how we can save our republic through some. Oh yeah. I've had this gentleman on before, and he talks about, and he's got something that is protecting our electoral college, which is what protects our republic. And if you don't know him yet, I'm going to give you his contact, because you need to have him on your show.
I will.
Let's close out with your segment by asking, what are you doing? How can people find out more about you and what you're doing to protect freedom in America?
Well, first of all, I'm a voice, and I use my voice to be able to enlighten people with information, tools, and resources, ideas, tools, and resources. When I finish speaking, I want people to know, what can I do? How does this relate to me? So I give them a lens. I help them see a lens on life. My little Judea, my Samaria, my outermost parts. Now, don't look at Washington, D.C. I'm talking about where you live, where you thrive, where you go, and where you grow. Right then and there. How can I infect from the inside out? Is it your golf course? Is it your bridge club? Is your ladies sewing club? Whatever. Join it. Don't run away from it. No, join them. That's what the enemy does a lot with a lot of Republican groups. They join, they infiltrate from the inside out. Join them. and then stayed there with him. Had a lady with a knitting club says, "Oh, everybody's just hating Trump. I think I'm not." I says, "No, you stay right there. You stay right there."
They're
So
right there.
we need to look at where's my community. What the Bible speaks of, my Judea, which is my little town, my Samaria, which is my surrounding county, my outermost parts. Where do I go and come? And wherever you go and come from, that's where you begin to infect. With what little, you don't have to be a great speaker. No. If it's about tomatoes, then doggone it, join the tomato club and let's talk about the green tomatoes and how you can be able to take them and share truth with people and ask the right questions.
All right, Lorraine.
Oh, ask the right questions.
So people can find you at LorraineLamond.net, right?
That's right. Yes, they can.
All right. Any place else? Because our next guest is hanging in the wings here.
Well, that's it. They can go to my YouTube channel with my name, and they have two of them. As one is Living Life by Design, Lorraine Lamond YouTube, and then don't forget my my Twitter handle, Best Speak Her, HER.
All right, Lorraine. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you.
God bless
Have a great day and safe travels. All right.
You know about the Republic. Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too, Lorraine. Have a great night. Hey, Trent, how are you? What's going on, man?
I'm well, William. It's great to be here. It's great to catch part of your last guest. That was terrific.
And you know what? It was a perfect setup because she started talking about the Republic and saving our Republic. And did you hear what I told her? Said about you're the perfect person for that.
No, I'm glad to pick right up where she finished, because it's absolutely right. We just don't appreciate, I think, as Americans, the value of our Republican form of government as the primary way that our rights are supposed to be preserved. One of the sort of sleight of hand that the progressives and the courts have used to deprive Americans of our liberty at the same time we thought we were all focused on our liberty, is to get us to focus on the Bill of Rights, and really just a couple of the Bill of Rights, to the exclusion of the structures, the Republican structures of government that are in our original Constitution. The Bill of Rights was like an extra add-on, just in case, right? In case of big government, break glass and access the Bill of Rights is kind of a last-ditch way to preserve the scraps of liberty that are left. But it's really about getting government back into its proper, its proper sphere, and making sure it's responsive to the people. So I'm excited to be here and talk with you about all these things.
Absolutely. Well, wait, before we go on, your website is it saveourstates? You have it up there already. I was actually going to put it on a banner, but you've already done it. So I'll just save yours up there.
There we go.
So and look, it's interesting is, Trent, you'll like this. At one of the other conferences, I met this organization. I have their card somewhere. About the popular vote. They're like, defend the popular vote or whatever. And they were quick to tell me, we want to be on your show because we're going to explain how the popular vote is so much better, than the and at that moment I think my eyes started rolling in the back of my head, and and the blinders went on because I really believe in electoral college, and I think it's the one thing that saves our country, or has saved our country, so many times.
And that's, when I first got into this, I mean, really back 25 years ago now, it just struck me that when our Constitution was created, we really had what I would call the three pillars of federalism, or the three pillars of state sovereignty that were in the original Constitution. And one of those was the power of state legislatures to choose United States senators. That was so important. And the progressives, the early progressives, they put a bullseye on that. We don't have time here to go into just all of the chicanery, all of the media manipulation that went into getting the 17th Amendment, right? 1913, we got the Federal Reserve, we got the income tax, we got Woodrow Wilson, and we got the 17th Amendment.
Right.
Just a radical change to our constitutional system. And then the other protection of state sovereignty was that the U.S. Constitution is very clear from the first clause of Article 1 that the federal government doesn't just have power, they have all powers herein granted.
Right.
Like they only have the powers listed.
Granted.
That's right. Primarily in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. And that was gradually unwound, really mostly during the New Deal. And, you know, people blame the courts, and they deserve their share of blame, but the courts were just upholding things that Congress did and that FDR did. You know, they're the primary culprits, and the courts kind of aided and abetted. And, you know, ultimately leading up to the Wickard versus Filburn case, where Congress said, we want to control the market for wheat in the U.S. And so even if somebody is growing wheat and by extension producing anything else on their own property for their own use, the federal government can come in and prosecute you for not, you know, abiding by federal regulations on that. And the Supreme Court, you know, in the early 40s said, they kind of threw up their hands and said, well, you know, everything sort of has some effect on interstate commerce. And so we guess that the Commerce Clause means Congress can do anything, which is completely absurd.
Right.
Total, you know, I mean, it just Supreme Court absolutely surrendering their role in protecting the Constitution. So that was the second pillar of federalism that went down. And the third is the Electoral College.
Right.
You know, it's a
and they've been attacking it ever since.
That's right. I mean, it is a core function of sovereignty to control your own elections. And the Electoral College means that even in a national election, it is completely run at the state level, right? You know, the elections are run by the states, primarily. The states then, I think, wisely delegate a lot of that power down to local governments. All of this is a good thing. All of this is something that the left, you know, would love to destroy. And so that started my interest in this. You know, the Electoral College protects state sovereignty. I think it produces a lot of other positive effects too, but we've got to preserve it if we want to preserve our republic. You know,
and maybe you know about this, and I forget where I read this, but you know, I personally believe that the last election, presidential election, had problems to say the least, and a lot of that was because certain states got turned over to, or certain states gave up their sovereignty to federal rules and regulations because of COVID, which is what allowed those states to be, how shall we say, I would say infiltrated, but made them vulnerable to election fraud. And I think that's what happened. So is that what you're referring to when you talk about not only state sovereignty, but does the Electoral College protect that too? Or is supposed to protect that?
That's right. I mean, the Electoral College creates, it at least creates the world or protects the world where states can, if they're willing to stand up for it, retain that part of their sovereignty, retain this sovereign power over their elections. Right now, again, states have to stand up for it. And I think, you know, we really, from my perspective, there are two big problems that we have in our government at the very fundamental level. One is this nationalization of political power, right? The federal government taking power away from states. That's one big problem. The other is what people call the administrative state, which is really stealing sovereignty away from the people at every level, at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level. This turning government over to experts. And sometimes those are experts. Usually those are experts in the bureaucracies. Sometimes those are outside experts. And sometimes they are experts in black robes. They're the judges. And I think we saw both of those things in the lead up to the 2020 election, where it was, you know, if it wasn't the federal government manipulating the way states were running elections, it was outside interests, you know, the Zuckerberg funded, you know, experts who were going to come in and help states run their elections better.
I know.
Or state judges.
As I hear you talk, I go, oh my gosh, I missed talking to Trent, because you're saying a lot of things I've been saying on my shows, which is, and I refer to it as the different bureaucracy, how bureaucracy has become so deep, you know, and I said this on my show yesterday, that some people refer to it as a swamp. You know, President Trump refers to it as a swamp. Many people refer to it as a swamp. Look, I'm from Louisiana, and I can tell you, swamp is a beautiful place, actually. You know, so I don't refer to it as a swamp. I refer to that deep bureaucratic level as a cesspool. You know, because What happens is, they've gotten so deep, and bureaucracies have gotten so powerful that they are able to rob us of our freedoms and liberties by circumventing the Constitution, because they're able to create rules and regulations that steal our freedoms without going to the Constitution.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening with a lot of our rights. And is all of that, or should all of that be protected in our electoral college system?
Yeah, I mean, the electoral college, again, it makes it possible to keep this power in the states in a way that, if we went to any form of a national popular vote system, all of the sudden the incentives would be tipped toward national control, because if a vote in a Chicago cemetery can directly cancel out my vote here in Oklahoma City, the only place I can go to remedy that is really Washington, D.C. And so even conservatives, I think, would have to accept a much greater level of national control of our elections if we had a national popular vote, because we'd have no other means of self-defense against, as I say, the proverbial Chicago cemetery voter.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we've got a bill that died, or that got vetoed, that they tried to override it yesterday in Louisiana, that still got killed, which is a system that will purge some of the voters off of our rolls. And they're finding people that are on our voting rolls that are 142 years old, that haven't voted in a couple of years, mind you. But
the name's not Methuselah, right?
Yeah, right. But another thing that you're shining the light on, which I really appreciate, which is, the bureaucracy has become so entrenched because of the attack on the not only the electoral college, but on our elections in general, that in the last presidential election, we had a Republican president. So we did not have a Democrat in office to be able to say, oh, these COVID rules should be in place. Instead, it was a bureaucracy that was so deep and entrenched that it was a bureaucracy, not Trump, that was able to get the election rules overturned, or, COVID rules. I hate doing the quotation sign, but get the COVID rules in place. That was a deep bureaucracy that got those rules in place, and not the last administration. So to your point, this deep bureaucratic levels that are getting more power because our electoral college is under attack, is proof that we need to save the electoral college. Is that a roundabout way of saying it, or would you have said it better?
Well, no, I mean, I think that's exactly right. You imagine a 2020 scenario without the electoral college, right? And all of the problems that we saw would have been, essentially 50 times worse, right? Because instead of Mark Zuckerberg having to funnel his money through different states, right? And instead of having states like Florida, I mean, Florida is a good example. I think Texas is another decent example where, we did, a lot of the focus has gone to states like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Arizona, where I think the legislatures in those states, there's some dereliction of duty on the part of past Republican legislatures who didn't do what they needed to do. But you look at Florida, right? The legislatures, the Republican legislators in Florida, every single year since 2000, were passing election reforms, right? Not like one big package. Every single year.
Exactly.
They improved that system. The electoral college allowed that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish what you're saying.
Oh, no, just, the electoral college allowed the states that have been successful to be successful. It's allowed states that have, made some improvements, and we have seen some good improvement.
Right.
It doesn't go as far as I think it should, but, Georgia, Arizona, Texas, like some of these states have made things better. Pennsylvania, if not for the governor there, would have, they did get through some good reforms, but would have, I think really been a sea change if the governor there wasn't, a left-wing Democrat. And all that is because of the electoral college. Otherwise, the Biden administration would be gaining more and more control over our elections right now. And, and as you say, even under a Republican administration, it really would be that bureaucracy in DC that would be calling a lot of the shots.
And to your point, had it not been for the Electoral College in the 2020 election, can you imagine an election where, you know, all of these states that had so many, God bless you, you know, how like in Michigan, they're saying they had like 1 million more people vote than they have of legal voting age. Well, I forgot if it was Michigan or Wisconsin, but one of those states, they had 1 million more people vote in 2020 than they had of legal age to vote in that state. Now, imagine, if you will, a popular vote, you know, that just decides the election right now. But because of our Electoral College, we've got 48, 49 of the states that can help fight, you know, that fraud, if you will.
Yeah, and you know, I always tell people, because conservatives do sometimes get frustrated with the system of federalism. If you are living in Michigan right now, or Minnesota, or California, I used to live in Washington State, right? So I completely understand. I mean, for that matter, I used to live in the actual District of Columbia, right in Washington, D.C. So, I mean, I understand bad governance at the state and local level. But I think what we have to appreciate is, right, because of this system of federalism that the Electoral College is you know, really a bulwark for, is really helping to protect. There are states that are getting it right. You know, no state is perfect, right? But South Dakota was a bright spot during COVID. Florida has been a bright spot. We have lots of states that have no state income tax. We've got states that just in the last couple of years have passed universal school choice, right? I mean, we have this laboratory for conservative ideas. And if we can't figure out, right, how to get our conservative policies in place in ostensibly conservative states. I make this argument in Oklahoma all the time, because we still face, you know, challenges with our own Oklahoma legislators, who, you know, the vast majority of them, the Republicans have a supermajority. So a supermajority of our legislators claim to be conservative champions. And, you know, a handful of them are telling the truth. You know, if we can't bring our principles to bear in our red states, right, why would we ever think we could do it from DC, right? And I think, you know, we've got to be as smart as the American founders were, right? They didn't think that just because they had really good ideas that they should take all those ideas and impose them across the country.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I really kind of beg my conservative friends, like, even if we get a great conservative champion back in the White House, even if we take over Congress, right, it is in the long-term interest of liberty to get the power out of DC and back into the states, even if Vermont is still going to be Vermont, right?
Right.
It can be Vermont. It's a great, you know,
exactly.
Yeah. You know, it may be that some states' purpose is just to serve as a warning to everybody else. That's okay.
But you know what? It's amazing. And you just gave me this thought, and I want to give you credit for it. You know, when you think about the balances of power and the checks and balances system, you know, and you think about the founding fathers put different things in place to balance something out. You know, they put the Senate to balance, you know, the House of Representatives. They put, you know, the justice system, you know, the Supreme Court, you know, in to balance out the judicial system, to balance out the executive, you know, office. You know, they put in it's like they put in the Electoral College to balance out the 10th Amendment. Mm-hmm. You know, it's almost like even those two things are kind of essentially the same, they in essence balance each other out, which is why at one time they had senators to be put in by the state legislators, because that ties into balancing out our elections and our 10th Amendment rights, which, to your point, was under attack. Now, we've talked for a while, and I know, you know, we got to end here in a few minutes, because I'm going to talk to you off air after we end. But, you know, where do you think that freedom, we've talked about the Electoral College, but where do you think freedom is most under attack in America?
I think freedom is, I mean, I'll give two answers, if I may.
Absolutely. No, I love it.
Political and one is more cultural. I mean, I think that federal spending is an existential threat to our government, but also just our entire way of life.
Right.
I mean, if the federal government continues to spend at the rate they're spending and drive deficits and debt the way that they're doing it right now, ultimately, the best case scenario is that America just goes into a long period of gradual decline, right? It's not that we're suddenly going to become Zimbabwe and our currency will be worth nothing. And I think some of my friends, need to be careful not to paint those doom and gloom scenarios, because when I was getting into politics in the 90s, I heard a lot of that. Like, we're going to, everything's going to go bust and it's going to happen next year and everybody should be buying gold. And that's not really what's likely. What's likely is we could go into a period of decline that could last for 100 years. Right. And that's
as China buys up our property and our farmland, and and slowly we don't recognize our country anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, getting federal spending under control, I think is just it is an existential issue. But the other challenge that I think we face is more of a cultural one. And I would put it this way: we have to revive our national heroes and just our heroes.
Yeah,
I mean, the progressives are history's great assassins.
Wow,
right? They go out into history and they want to drag it all down into the muck, because for them, right, that actually creates this implicit argument for the kind of bureaucratic tyranny that the progressives want. Because if they can convince Americans that George Washington was just some dumb slave-owning, white guy, and that Thomas Jefferson was a worthless hypocrite, and James Madison, at best was just some bookish guy who lived, a couple hundred years ago, who couldn't possibly understand, anything about human life today, right? Then it creates this sense among Americans. I think a lot of Americans, I think, have come to just implicitly believe this, that surely we today are so much smarter that we really shouldn't be bound by the Constitution. We shouldn't be bound by these principles about, whether it's Republican government or liberty or limited government or whatever. I mean, we've got to tell the great stories about, whether it's about American sacrifice in World War II, or I was just up. I had the real privilege to be up at Gettysburg for the reenactments that they do every year on the
I didn't want to see that.
Oh, I mean, 2,000 reenactors there, 55 cannon. I mean, everybody should take the opportunity to go and do that if you can. It's always the few days.
And when is it usually every year?
Every year, the first couple days of July, the anniversary of the battle. I mean, it just the sense that even as Americans were at our most divided, we had so much in common, and we were able to come back together because we still believe in liberty and in the inherent dignity of human beings and in the goodness of our Constitution and our country.
Right.
And, we've got to tell those stories. We've got to remind our kids and our grandkids that this is a great country, which doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that we're better than everybody else.
It doesn't mean we're not perfect, it just means that we're a great country.
That's right.
That are as imperfect as we can be sometimes, that all the great things that we are carry us through that imperfection.
That's right. And it creates really it's a blessing that should be a burden, right? That we have this great patrimony that we need to first understand and then appreciate based on our understanding of it, and then pass it on to our posterity, to our the future generation. And also, I think I think as Reagan put it so well, right, to be that shining city on a hill. And of course, Reagan was, was borrowing from, from the first generation of Americans. Not that we need to go around the world telling people how to live, because I don't think that works very well anyway.
I agree with you. Right.
Yeah, but we can be the country. And I think we for a lot of the 20th century, we were this place where people around the rest of the world said, we want to make our country like that, right? We want to bring those principles here voluntarily. And, that's the most powerful and effective foreign policy we can have, is to have that kind of a witness to the world as Americans.
It used to be that people came to America, because they loved freedom and they loved our country. Now they come to America because the door's open and there's free stuff to get when you cross the threshold.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's, I mean, we've got an entire political party that wants to run immigration that way as essentially a way to create a permanent underclass that they control and derive political power from. I mean, it is a disaster first and foremost for that group of people,
right.
and it's a disaster for the entire country and the idea of just of self-government, right? I mean, it's what they've done with public sector unions, with government unions in the past, right? To create this group of people that are, dependent on the Democratic Party for their paychecks. Even FDR thought that was a scam, by the way. Right?
FDR thought that was a scam. What?
Yeah, I mean, FDR was. They started pushing unionizing government workers back during the New Deal, and FDR there's a great letter from him to one of the union leaders saying, basically, you can't be serious. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. These people work for the government. They have a vote like everybody else. To unionize them and give them the power to strike and would be like making those people, like, again, it's my words, not FDR's words, but sort of like super citizens, right? That you're giving them more power than regular citizens over the way government works. I mean, FDR just sort of instinctively recognized that was an un-American thing to do. And then, by the time you get to LBJ, the mainstream Democratic Party was pushing this all over the country.
But you know what? To your point, FDR actually foresaw what was going to happen with the creation of bureaucracies through all these government jobs, because essentially these bureaucratic agencies and the people who run them have become super citizens, like you just said. It's actually given them a little bit more power, if you will, on that. So let's wrap up with this, because I want to talk to you off camera for a minute afterwards. I know you're up against another hard deadline. What are you doing, to protect freedom and liberty in America with Save Our States, and how can more people find out about it and get involved?
Yeah, so Save Our States, primarily, we go out, we educate state legislators about the importance of the Electoral College and the real danger of this national popular vote interstate compact that's out there right now. And then we work to educate the public, all Americans, about the importance of the Electoral College. We have a documentary that's available on the streaming service Tubi and also on Amazon Video called Safeguard, an Electoral College Story. Safeguard, an Electoral College Story. People can find that at those streaming services. It really explains federalism in our republic and why the Electoral College, why we have it and why it's important. And then we also have just started leading in partnership with our friends at the Honest Elections Project, an effort to stop ranked choice voting, which is this other sort of left-wing scheme that they're
right.
Elections. So we're doing that, and glad to have people partner with us. So saveourstates.com is the website for everything Electoral College. And then folks can go to stoprcv.com if they want to be a part of what we're doing to prevent this really wonky, elitist, and ultimately, very dangerous election proposal that's being pushed in places like Missouri and, really all across the country, Nevada, Oregon, and so on. So,
when we interviewed a long time ago, we talked about how in these individual states, they're going in and they're trying to change the legislators, the legislation in each state to go by the popular vote instead of the Electoral College vote. And that's what you guys fight against.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That is our number one mission, is to stop the national popular vote interstate compact.
Well, Trent, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. When I post this on Facebook and YouTube and on Rumble, once again, and on the podcast, I'll put a connection there for people to find out more about you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, William. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Trent. I'll talk to you here in just 1 second. I want to thank everybody else. Please share the interview. It'll be, like I said, it'll be on all my Rumble channel, my Facebook channel, my YouTube channel, and on all podcast apps. Share it with somebody that you think loves freedom. Thank you all very much, and have a great night.